And you can catch Hazy at the Baysy at the Bayswater Hotel at 3 o'clock tomorrow night. Paul Hasleby, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you, Duff. Yeah, get down there. Hazy at the Bays. He's such a good establishment, the Bayswater Hotel. Some good memories in the past down there. So it's going to be a big day tomorrow.
Do they do a good chicken parmigiana? That's all I want to know, Hayes.
They do, mate. If you come down, they will do it for you. You've just got pull wherever you go around this state, Duff. So if you want one, you come down and we'll sort it out for you.
Yes, I've got pull wherever I go around the state. I get pulled out of rooms by bouncers and told to go home.
Have you ever been blacklisted, though, Duff, in your time? Have you been blacklisted by any clubs across your career?
No, I did get removed by a bouncer twice from Rumours and once from the Como Hotel. I think I was very stiff the night from the Como Hotel because me and a mate were waiting at the door for about half an hour and the bouncers had disappeared inside. And then we decided we could just walk in. And when we walked in, they accused us of trying to get in without paying the cover charge and chucked us out. And I tried to argue with them.
You would have done.
Hey?
You would always pay, wouldn't you?
I absolutely would always pay. I tried to argue with them and I got put in a half Nelson and stuck on the footpath. Hey, obviously there's a lot to talk about. Obviously both teams struggling. They both face enormous games this weekend. West Coast probably to avoid the certainty of a wooden spoon, and Fremantle to try and stay relevant in the competition and keep the Wolves from Justin Longmuir's door. First of all, let's do some retrospectives. What the hell happened to Fremantle in your eye on Friday night against St Kilda?
Can't explain it, to be honest. I watched them the week before against the Adelaide Crows and I thought, gee, they're back. You know, they had all those tough discussions on the back of the Melbourne game. It was the response game where they spoke about being selfless, hard at the footy. And I even said last week on my show that it reminded me of that game, the big final they played to get into the grand final against the Sydney Swans with just the manic pressure that we saw. And then 1 week later, it's got to be between the ears. There's no doubt about that. Whether they're mentally soft and they can't do it on the road and they can't do it consistently, something's not quite right because it was as soft as I've seen under Justin Longmuir. And, you know, and it was for 4 quarters. Like, rarely do you have a game where you're off for 4 quarters. It's a momentum league. You know, we've seen so many teams get it back at some point. They just never did. They didn't give a yell. And it was ugly, and they deserved their right whack for what was probably the worst performance that I've seen under Longmuir. But, you know, there's an argument to say, given what's on the line, the stakes, how good their squad is, that it's their worst performance in history. It's
certainly their worst performance under Justin, and I think the other thing is a legitimate argument, Hayes. I think you can make that case. So the question is, this is now becoming a bit of a pattern, this inconsistency, and the inconsistency of intensity and effort. So is this salvageable, do you think, for Justin Longmuir?
I think it is. He's still got time to do it. He's got to have a good look at himself and his game plan to say, well, you know, after 6 years, I'm a 50% winning ratio sort of coach. And if he stays at 50, he won't be there for the foreseeable future. But, you know, has he got the squad? Has he got the game plan to be based so much on intensity and contest and defence? And do you have to add other things? Because what I saw on the weekend with West Coast Eagles in particular, they got smashed around the midfield, yet they were leading that game on the back of their ball movement in the back half. They found a way to get through, and I just think Justin needs to add some extra layers to his game, because when the team stops their handball game from stoppage and the contest and they get beaten in that area, then pretty much they lose the game. It can't be as simple as that. You've got to have other mechanisms, and there was a good stat that I saw last night on one of the football shows, Fox Footy, I think it was, number 18 in handball receives in defence. So when they mark the ball, they just do not look to play on. Their first thought is to hold it, look sideways, and it just takes all the excitement out of playing footy when you're playing that way, particularly when you look across the league and see many other teams playing with a lot of freedom.
Yeah, you're right. They tend to get the ball and spread, don't they, as opposed to gather and run, as the way some other teams do, it's an interesting style. It's an interesting method, but I guess the question is it working for them? When they are so hot and cold and they're 1 week and not there the next, is there a case to argue that there is a soft culture there now, Hayes?
Oh, absolutely. You have to look at that. And not only just from week to week, but the big stage performances. Like, how many times we've been there, particularly in Victoria, and I know it's we still want to prove ourselves over there, and you want to win on the big stage. And every time they get there, they just put in meat performances like that, and it sets the club back 2, 3, 4, 5 years every time they do it. So, whether that's personnel, whether it's running through the football club from the top down, there's all those arguments, and you have all these discussions when you continue to get results like that.
So, in terms of changes for this week, we know Hayden Young is gone. He's gone long term. He requires surgery, which means that may or may not play again this year, and probably whether he does play again this year probably depends heavily on where they are placed when he gets fit to play in maybe 3 months' time. So what do you do if you're Justin Longmuir? What levers do you pull at selection?
Well, you've got to have consequences for poor action. And, there's a number of players in that team that are hiding behind the 1 week on FIFO model. You've got Michael Frederick that's pretty good here at home, and you've got others that sort of every time they get on the road, they struggle. So it's hard sometimes to line up their form individually to say, well, that guy's completely out of form. But I think you start in the ruck. I think you get some excitement in there. And who's their most exciting ruck? It's Luke Jackson. I think you give him the number one ruck role and you say, mate, it's yours. Go and do what you need to do. And I think with that creates the overlap run, because you just see from Max Gould on the weekend, if you've got a ruck that spreads and gets involved with contest, it just makes it easier for you to move the ball. Sean Darcy can't do that at the moment. Whether he can in the future, I'm not quite sure. He needs a fitness block where he needs to learn how to spread and run and get involved with the contest, because it ain't working with him in there at the moment. So that would be the first one. I'd explore Brennan Cox, and his role, and in particular the 4 big defenders. I don't think that's working. I think you need a smaller model that can bounce out of the back line. Now, that might be contradictory to the style of Justin Longmuir, but if I was in that coaching position, I'd probably get Wagner back down there and maybe another one just to mix it up, because maybe Draper has to pay the price, but Brennan Cox, some really good intercept marks, and his one-on-one's been terrific at times this year when he's further up the ground. When he's close to goal, he's been vulnerable this year. But what do you get from his intercept marks? Because the first thing he does is look sideways and kicks it back to Luke Ryan, who looks sideways and goes across the other side. Like, intercepts, you've got to make the most out of it. Switkowski, as a player, is nowhere near where he was 2 years ago. He's got some real concerns, and they'll say, oh, yeah, but he tackles and pressures, but does he? Haven't seen it the last 3 weeks. He's been pretty ordinary. He's been bounced off. He's missed tackles. Michael Frederick, you could have a look at him. He's probably one. And Jeremy Sharp, he's probably another one. He's in the midfield. And I know you're probably aware of making too many changes in the midfield, but is he hurting enough outside on the wing, and is he good enough defensively when called upon to get back into that position?
Can they beat Collingwood? I mean, they should be able to beat Collingwood, shouldn't they? There's talk that Collingwood are going to rest players because they're coming off the 5-day break. They also have to travel. This is a very winnable game for Freo, isn't it?
Of course they can. I go back to the corresponding game last year where Collingwood had a lot of players out too, and they came over. Remember, they belted us, absolutely belted us, and we came back in the last quarter and we salvaged a draw. Was that last year? I think it was last year.
It was, but I think in terms of breaks, Hayes, I think it was Freo with the short break that time. Freo came off a 6-day break and got stuck in Melbourne, so it was effectively a 5-day break. So I think that was a factor working against Freo that time. If anything, it works in their favour this time.
Yeah, and bringing in the 5 players might be a good thing. It might be a positive because of that 5-day break. And I don't know, if you're playing at Collingwood at the moment and you're getting one opportunity to come into the team, you are giving it absolutely everything, because next week there's 5 senior players coming back into the team. So they'll be cherry ripe. Can they win it? Yep. Can they lose it and be embarrassed and lose their way again? Absolutely. I see a way that can happen if they don't get their intensity right and their game plan right.
Kane Corn says Harley Reid should leave West Coast because he doesn't get protection and he's getting tagged. What's your view on Harley Reid? Where's he at? And if West Coast do try and protect him, how do they go about it?
If Andrew McQualter is serious as a coach and he wants selection integrity, Harley Reid doesn't play this week. If you look at what he's done this year, and I admire it, he hasn't been afraid to make the big calls. He's dropped Tim Kelly, Tom Cole, Bailey Williams, even a number of young kids. When they've lost form, they've gone out. At the moment, Harley Reid is struggling, and everywhere they put him, he's creating another headache for them because he just can't go. He doesn't have the tank, and I'm not sure he's a defender as well. He was vulnerable when he was put in that position. Take the politics out of it, take his number one draft pick out of it. There's no way that he should be a regular in this team right now, and that's basically how I see it. I saw his comments about protecting him, but where were those comments towards Tim Kelly when he wasn't protected when he got tagged the week before he got dropped? So I think you need consistency, And I think you need to create the right environment, and McQualter gets the chance to do that, where, you're sending the right message about the standards that you want to accept for every player. You can't have rules for a number one draft pick and somebody who you're trying to keep that's different to others.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I mean, it's a different view to me, but I think it's a very valid point. And certainly, when Andrew McQualter is trying to impose his will on a group, that would be a very strong message to send. Their waffle players are in form too, aren't they? Their waffle team is starting to play better. They played better at the weekend, so it might be that a Tom Gross or someone else should be rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. Clay Hall had the 32 on the weekend, and Tom Gross. And, mate, if you give Tom Gross and Clay Hall the same game time as Harley Reid had in the middle of the ground, even from the performances I saw from those guys, they've shown me more than Harley Reid this year. And I know that's blunt and hard, but that's the reality. Take away all the side noise about who Harley Reid is and where he's come from and what the future holds. He hasn't shown many glimpses this year of the player that he can be.
Can West Coast beat Richmond? Because I suspect if they don't beat Richmond, they're winning the wooden spoon this year.
No, they can, but it's going to require 4 quarters of effort. Do they have 4 quarters of effort that they can maintain that game style for without Jeremy McGovern? It's probably hard, and Richmond would be thinking, this is it. This is another chance to get their 3rd win, which would be a terrific outcome for where they've come from. I'll be tipping Richmond, or I have tipped Richmond, but, in any game of footy, I think both teams are capable of winning, but they'd have to get a lot right.
What would you do if you're West Coast around ruck stock? We saw them go with Matt Flynn early in the season, then drop him. They went with Bailey Williams for several weeks, and then they've dropped him and brought Matt Flynn back. Who plays and leads the ruck this week, or do they both play?
Well, it's an option to do it. I'd like to see Bailey Williams as a ruck forward. So he's recruited as a ruck forward, so all of a sudden he's been jumped in the queue by Jack Williams, and I'm not sure he's that far behind Jack, and maybe he's got potential long-term. I think you look long-term a little bit with these 2 players, and even in the waffle. So when they get dropped, they go back and ruck, and they've got some young ruckmen in the waffle competition that need exposure because they need to find out whether they can actually play or not, because their decisions that they make through the national draft and the mid-season draft will be around ruckmen. So they need to go and explore their list a bit more, put Bailey Williams in the back line if you need to. Try and do a Rory lob to him. You might find that he can do it, but you might find that one of those young rucks can actually occupy a space. But Matt Flynn, he's miles off it, to be honest, in terms of what I saw last week, and the week before it was Lloyd Meek. They're not the long-term future, so I think they need to act accordingly around that and get aggressive with their future plans.
Hayes, in short, your tips for this week regarding the 2 WA teams. Does Freo beat Collingwood?
I tipped them with no confidence, 1 point. And I tipped Richmond to beat the West Coast Eagles.
Thanks so much for joining us on the show, mate. And hopefully a lot of people join you at the Basie tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thanks for coming on.
It's going to be fast. Thanks for your time, Duff. Bye.
Don't forget, Hazy at the Basie tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll be back with more after the news.